This plane you're seeing is the B-1B Lancer, the only supersonic bomber that the United States still has in operation. Nicknamed Bone by the pilots, it can carry an impressive 34 tons of weaponry. That's more than any other American bomber. These images were recorded at Orland Air Base in Norway. So far, nothing unusual, right? Well, now consider this. This base is located just 1,200 kilometers from Russia, and these bombers aren't there just for training. They're in Norway for an important reason, for something that Putin can't
hide anymore.
To understand why these B-1Bs represent such a serious threat, I need to show you a detail about this plane. In the 1960s, Americans dreamed of a bomber that combined the supersonic speed of the B-58 Hustler with the payload capacity of the gigantic B-52. The initial result was the B-1A, designed to fly at more than twice the speed of sound and penetrate Soviet airspace at high altitude. But in 1977, something unexpected happened. The program was canceled for being too expensive and ambitious. For 4 years, the project was dead, until in 1981. Ronald Reagan decided to bring it back, with a completely different philosophy. The new B-1B wasn't designed to fly high like its predecessor. It was optimized for something much more dangerous, flying low and close to the ground, using terrain to hide from radar. Its speed was intentionally reduced, but it gained the ability to be almost invisible when flying low. This change in strategy defined the current role of the B-1B. It's the only American bomber capable of supersonic speeds. It can reach 1,448 kilometers per hour at high altitude and over 1,000 kilometers per hour even when flying low. For comparison, the B-2 Spirit barely exceeds 1,000 kilometers per hour, but speed is only part of the equation. The B-1B has something unique: variable geometry wings that adjust in flight. The wings are extended for takeoff and landing and swept back for maximum speed. This flexibility gives it impressive agility, more like a fighter jet than a heavy bomber. And it also has a number that's really impressive: 34,000 kilograms of armament. To give you an idea, that's almost twice what a B-2 Spirit can carry, and it even surpasses the venerable B-52A single. B-1B can carry 84 220 kilogram bombs, or 24 of the gigantic 900 kilogram bombs. I don't know if you know this, but within the American bomber force, each plane has its specific role. The B-52 is the economical bomb truck, ideal for long-range attacks with cruise missiles. The B-2 Spirit is the stealth penetrator, invisible to the most expensive radars and with a lower payload capacity. The B-1B, on the other hand, occupies the perfect middle ground. It's a supersonic attacker that combines speed, agility, and the largest payload capacity in the fleet. But there's something even more specific about the B-1B. It's the only American bomber capable of carrying the long-range anti-ship missile. Long-range anti-ship missile designed specifically to find and destroy Russian warships at sea. And that brings us directly to Norway. The choice of the Åland base was not by chance. It is strategically close to the Kola Peninsula, the absolute heart of Russian naval power in the Arctic. That is where the headquarters of the feared Russian Northern Fleet is located, including Putin's most advanced nuclear submarines, considered the backbone of Russia's second strike nuclear capability. Russia considers this region its most sacred stronghold. It created what the military calls the Bastion, an area highly protected by multiple layers of defense. Long-range missile systems, submarines on constant patrol, and interceptor fighters create a lethal barrier around the region. The goal is to keep NATO ships and planes far away, protecting the nuclear submarines that guarantee Russia's survival in the event of nuclear war. But the B-1Bs are not in Norway alone. They are training together with the Norwegian Air Force's F-35 fighters, and this combination is a nightmare for any Russian general. The tactical concept is simple, but devastating. The F-35S, being stealthy, penetrate Russian defenses first and open gaps in the protection network, neutralizing radars and missile batteries. Then, the B-1Bs enter through these openings, protected by the F-35S, and unleash their 34 tons of destruction on Russia's most critical targets. The pilots are rehearsing exactly that, practicing the process of finding, fixing, tracking, and attacking against simulated threats that mimic Russian defenses. It's not a pointless exercise, it's a specific rehearsal to dismantle the Russian bastion in the Arctic.
A term you might hear is anti-access area denial. And that refers to what an adversary might be doing to prevent us from using our tactics or getting close to their air or land areas. With the Norwegians, like training with the F-35S, they could get closer than we could, using effects that allow us to get in and carry out the missions we need to.
Now you might ask, but why should Putin be so concerned about this? Russia doesn't have a strong army that devastated Ukraine.
Glory to the victorious people. Happy holiday to you. Happy Victory Day. Hooray. Subtitles are on.
And well, here we come to the heart of the matter and to the secret that Putin can no longer hide. The war in Ukraine did something that Putin never expected. Ukraine unintentionally did all the work for NATO. They served as a kind of testing laboratory for today's wars. It also put the Russian army to the test and exposed its weaknesses in a way that no military exercise or intelligence analysis could have done. And what was discovered is shocking. Western intelligence estimates indicate that Russia has already lost more than 1 million soldiers, including those killed and wounded, in Ukraine. More than 22,000 pieces of military equipment have been destroyed, including over 4,000 tanks. These are not just statistics. They represent the destruction of the modern military capability that Russia took decades to build. To give you an idea, Russia is producing or refurbishing about 1,500 tanks per year to make up for these losses. It sounds like a lot, but there's a crucial detail. 80% of that production consists of refurbishing old Soviet-era equipment, and those stockpiles are not infinite. Military analysts estimate that most of the equipment available for refurbishment will be depleted by 2026. After that, Russia will have to rely solely on new production, which is much slower and more expensive. This has created what experts call a window of vulnerability, a period in which Russia is militarily weakened, but this window will not last forever. Military leaders from several countries have reached a consensus on when Russia might recover and once again pose a real threat to NATO. German General Carsten Breuer mentions 2029, Ukrainian President Zelensky mentions 2030, and NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte says 5 years. And this agreement among them is not a mere coincidence. It is based on a cold analysis of the time needed for Russia to rebuild its armed forces. It is in this context that we should understand the arrival of the B-1Bs in Norway. The timing is not a coincidence. They arrived just a few days before the talks between Putin and Trump, and about a month before Russia's Zapad 2025 exercises. The Zapad exercises are Russia's largest, conducted with Belarus. They are not defensive. They are clear rehearsals for a possible invasion of NATO countries, specifically the Baltic states. NATO has always seen these exercises as rehearsals for aggression and a form of political intimidation. Traditionally, these exercises were meant to intimidate the alliance. Putin showed off his military might and put psychological pressure on the West, but this time it's different. Now it's as if the Americans are saying, you can do your exercises to intimidate us. We're going to demonstrate our real capability here, right next to you. Here comes a revealing strategic shift as well, which few have noticed. Historically, when the Americans stationed bombers in Europe, they were mainly based in the United Kingdom, which has a milder climate. But since 2021, that has changed radically. The B-1Bs began operating directly from Norway with the explicit goal of gaining experience in Arctic conditions. This change coincides perfectly with Russia's failures in Ukraine. When Putin demonstrated real and credible military strength, the Americans kept a respectful distance. Now that this strength has proven, for the most part, to be illusory, they have physically moved closer to Russia's most sensitive borders. During the arrival of the bombers in Norway, something highly symbolic happened. They were escorted by Spanish Eurofighter A-18M Hornet fighters operating out of Iceland as part of NATO's air policing mission. This act of perfect coordination between American, Norwegian, and Spanish forces demonstrates exactly what Putin fears most: real operational unity of NATO working in practice. The exercises being conducted in Norway have a very specific purpose. The crews are training against simulated threats that replicate exactly the Russian air defense systems. They practice flying in formation, coordinating complex attacks, and overcoming integrated air defenses like those that protect the Kola Peninsula. It is literally a rehearsal for real war scenarios. And Putin knows this perfectly well. For Putin, who built his entire political strategy and public image on military intimidation and projecting strength, seeing American supersonic bombers training 1,200 kilometers from his most sensitive border, it's a devastating blow to his credibility as a strong leader. But another factor makes this situation historically unique. This may very well be the last great show of force for the B-1B. The United States Air Force plans to retire the entire fleet by 2036. Its replacement will be the B-21 Raider, a completely stealth bomber that represents a totally different philosophy of aerial warfare. While the B-1B relies on a combination of supersonic speed, agility, and massive firepower, the B-21 relies on total invisibility to radar. This change reflects a fundamental strategic gamble. In the future, against adversaries like Russia and China, the ability to remain invisible will be more important than the ability to fly fast. We are witnessing not only a demonstration of military strength, but potentially the operational farewell of one of the legends of world military aviation. An aircraft that has flown more than 12,000 real combat missions since 2001 from Iraq and Afghanistan to Syria and Libya, proving its capability in real warfare. As for Russia, well, they have their own supersonic bomber, the Tupolev Tu-160, nicknamed Black Jack by NATO. On paper, it's even bigger and faster than the B-1B, capable of reaching over 2,500 kilometers per hour. But there's an important difference between them. While the B-1B has proven its capability in 12,000 real combat missions, the Tupolev 160 remains a threat only on paper, never tested in conflicts of the same intensity. This is the difference between proven capability in practice versus capability only on paper. That's exactly what the war in Ukraine has revealed about the Russian army as a whole. The strategic concept behind the presence of the B-1Bs in Norway is what the military calls peace through strength. It's not about provoking conflict or unnecessarily increasing tensions. It's about demonstrating enough credible military capability to deter any attempt at aggression. The logic is straightforward. If Putin knows that NATO has not only the technical capability, but most importantly, the political will to respond to any aggression. With devastating and coordinated force, he will think much more carefully before considering attacking any member of the alliance. NATO's Article 5 establishes the fundamental principle that an attack against any member is considered an attack against all members. The B-1Bs, operating on Norwegian soil and training for specific combat scenarios, are the most tangible physical manifestation of this collective defense promise. For Putin, who for more than 2 decades relied on his ability to intimidate and pressure the West through veiled threats and shows of force, seeing these American war machines positioned so close to his most strategically sensitive borders is a constant and undeniable reminder that times have changed. The era in which Russia could threaten and intimidate Western countries without facing direct and tangible consequences is coming to an end. And NATO is making that very clear, without having to fire a single shot or utter a single explicit threat. Now, I want to know your opinion. Do you believe that the strategy of peace through strength is effective in discouraging aggression from Russia? Leave your answer in the comments. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share the video. See you next time.